Little Red Riding Hood. A long time ago, in a little village at the edge of the forest, lived a little girl and her mother. Everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood because of her bright red cloak with a hood that her granny had made her. "Please take this basket of bread and goodies to your granny because she is sick in bed," her mother said. "Go through the forest, but don't talk to any strangers on the way." As Little Red Riding Hood skipped merrily along the forest path, enjoying the bright sunshine, the blue sky, and the birds singing in the trees, she met a big black wolf. "Where are you going?" asked the wolf. "I'm going to take this basket to my granny," Red Riding Hood replied. "Why don't you take your granny some flowers? She would like that," the wolf suggested. "That is a good idea," Red Riding Hood said as she thanked the wolf. As Red Riding Hood stopped to pick some flowers, the wolf ran through the forest to her granny's cottage, feeling very, very hungry. After reaching the house, the wolf frightened Granny and locked her in a dark room. He then put on Granny's nightcap and glasses. Laying in bed, he pulled up the quilt and waited for Red Riding Hood to come. Red Riding Hood arrived and knocked on Granny's door. "It's me, Granny," she said. "Come in, my dear," called the wolf in a squeaky voice. "I'm in the bedroom." "Hello, Granny," said Red Riding Hood cheerfully. Then she stared. "What big eyes you have," she said. "All the better to see you with," squeaked the wolf. "What big ears you have," said Red Riding Hood. "All the better to hear you with," squeaked the wolf. "And what big teeth you have," she said. "All the better to eat you with," cried the wolf, and he jumped on the little girl. Red Riding Hood turned around and ran out of the cottage crying, "Help! Help!" A woodsman passing by heard her screams and found Little Red Riding Hood, who told him about the wicked wolf. When the woodsman entered the cottage with his axe, the wolf was so scared he ran away, never to be seen again. After unlocking Granny, Red Riding Hood explained the whole incident. Her granny kissed her and wisely said, "Remember, Little Red Riding Hood, you should never talk to strangers." The end. Rapunzel. There once was a man and a woman who lived in a small house. The house looked onto a beautiful garden that belonged to an evil witch. The couple was soon going to have a baby girl. One day, the woman saw the most beautiful plant in the garden. It looked so fresh and she had the most intense desire to eat the plant. The man, who loved her, decided to sneak into the witch's garden to get the plant. But the witch caught him in the garden and said, "Because you are stealing from me, I demand that you give me your firstborn child." When the baby girl was born, the witch appeared and took her away. She named her Rapunzel and put her in a tower with no doors or stairs. Her parents watched her grow up from across the garden. When the witch wanted to go up into the tower, she would shout, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Rapunzel had beautiful hair that she would lower for the witch to climb. One day, a prince was passing by and heard Rapunzel singing from her window. He was captivated by her beauty. The prince quickly hid behind a bush when he saw the witch arriving. Just after the witch left, the prince came and shouted, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair to me." Rapunzel saw the handsome prince and quickly let him climb up her hair to the tower. They immediately fell in love. One day, when the witch was climbing her hair, Rapunzel accidentally exclaimed, "You're so heavy! It never hurts my hair so much when the prince comes to see me." The witch understood what was going on and angrily cut off Rapunzel's lovely hair. The witch then cast a spell, sending Rapunzel to a faraway desert where she was left sad and alone. Later, when the witch heard the prince call to Rapunzel, she let down Rapunzel's hair she had cut. When the prince reached the top of the tower, he was shocked when he saw the witch. The witch cast a spell on the prince to make him blind. He immediately started wandering all of the land in search of his love Rapunzel. Eventually, he reached a hot desert and heard a lovely voice singing a sad song. He recognized the voice and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, is it you?" She ran towards him, and when she saw that her prince was blind, she cried. Her tears fell into his eyes, and suddenly he could see again. The prince took Rapunzel back to his castle, where they were married. Rapunzel was reunited with her parents, and her hair grew almost as long as before. The end.
The Story of Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. A long, long time ago, there lived a young man named Aladdin. He was rather small for his age, and he was very poor. Every day he would travel a long way to the big city, searching for any kind of work so that he might get something to eat. One day when he was in the marketplace, a fine horse-drawn carriage passed right by him, and in it was Princess Jasmine, the Sultan's beautiful daughter. Aladdin immediately fell in love with her. "How I wish I could meet her," he thought to himself. "But what would she want with a poor boy like me?" While Aladdin was busy, lost in his thoughts and gazing after the young princess, an old man tapped him on the shoulder and said,
"Young man, do you want to earn a gold coin?"
"Oh, yes," Aladdin replied happily. "What do I have to do?"
"Just follow me,"
said the old man. They walked for many miles until they reached the side of a mountain. The old man opened his arms and started chanting strange words that Aladdin had never heard before. Suddenly, a tiny opening appeared in the rock. It was so small that even Aladdin, as small as he was, could barely fit through it, and with only an inch to spare on either side.
"In this cave there is a lamp. Go inside and bring it to me," said the old man. "Do not waste any time, because once this hole closes, it can never be opened again."
Aladdin quickly and carefully climbed through the opening on the mountainside, and then down and down and down many stairs until he came to a room that was filled with gold and silver and many other treasures. In a corner sat the old rusty lamp. Aladdin took the lamp as he was instructed, but thought, "Nobody will mind if I take some of these precious stones with me." And so Aladdin began to pick up a number of beautifully colored stones to take back home. Suddenly, he heard the old man begin to shout,
"The hole is closing! Come quickly!"
Aladdin ran as fast as he could back to the opening, but the hole was much too narrow for him to go through now.
"Give me the lamp!"
the old man shouted. But just as he said this, the opening sealed shut, and Aladdin was trapped in a dark cave with the old rusty lamp still in his hands. "I'm doomed because of this dirty old lamp," Aladdin said, while rubbing some of the dirt off in an attempt to clean it. Shazam! A genie popped out from inside the lamp and exclaimed,
"Greetings, master. I am the genie of the lamp, and I am here to grant you 3 wishes.
I wish to go home, Aladdin stammered in utter amazement. Shazam! In the blink of an eye, Aladdin was at home once again. He was thrilled with his newfound prize, but could not stop thinking about the lovely Princess Jasmine. So the next day, Aladdin went to the Sultan's palace and said, "I am Aladdin, and I would like to meet the Princess Jasmine."
Only princes can see my daughter,
the Sultan said.
Are you a prince?
"I am," Aladdin replied. "Kindly take these precious stones as a gift from me, and please bring the princess to my palace so that I may visit with her." The Sultan was impressed and agreed to bring his daughter to visit Aladdin. As soon as Aladdin left the palace, he rubbed the lamp, and the genie came out. "I wish to be a prince," Aladdin commanded the genie. "Shazam!" In the blink of an eye, there was Aladdin, dressed in expensive clothes, and off in the distance stood his own palace with many servants ready to obey him. When the Sultan and the princess arrived, their eyes grew large, for neither of them had ever seen so much wealth before this. They were dazzled by everything around them, and Jasmine immediately fell in love with Aladdin. A short time later, the two were married. Aladdin now had everything he could ever want, so he used his last wish to free the good genie from the tiny lamp as a token of his gratitude, and Aladdin and Jasmine lived happily ever after. The end. The story of Peter and the Wolf. Early one morning, Peter opened the gate and walked out into the big green meadow. On a branch of a large tree sat a little bird, Peter's friend. "All is quiet," chirped the bird happily. Just then, a penguin came slowly waddling by. Seeing this, the little bird flew down from the tree, and ruffling up his feathers, he scoffed, "What kind of a bird are you if you can't fly?" The penguin sharply retorted, "What kind of a bird are you if you can't swim?" And she dove gracefully into the pond. As they bickered back and forth, something caught Peter's attention. A cat, who had been prowling through the grass, stealthily crept toward the bird on her velvet paws. "Look out!" shouted Peter, and the bird swiftly flew up into the tree. The penguin glared indignantly at the cat from the middle of the pond. Just then, Peter's grandfather came out, upset because Peter had gone into the meadow by himself.
It's a dangerous place. What would you do if a wolf should come out? Grumbled his grandfather.
Peter proudly replied, "Boys like me are not afraid of wolves." But grandfather led Peter home and locked the gate behind him. Just as Peter left the meadow with his grandfather, a great gray wolf came out of the forest. In a flash, the cat jumped into the tree, and the bird hastily flew to his branch. But before the penguin could do anything about it, the wolf had snuck up behind her, and in one gulp he swallowed her all up. Peter was standing behind the locked gate, watching all that was going on. He dashed into the house, got a sturdy rope, and climbed up the high stone wall. Grabbing hold of a branch that extended over the wall, Peter was able to climb up, over, and into the tree. He then directed the bird, "Fly down and circle over the wolf." And so the bird did, almost touching the wolf's head with his wings. The wolf snapped angrily at him and tried to catch him,
but the bird was too clever. Meanwhile, Peter tied a lasso and carefully let it down around the wolf's tail. He pulled on it with all his might and caught the wolf, who began to jump wildly about, trying to get loose. But Peter had tied the other end of the rope to the tree, and the wolf was trapped. Just then, 2 hunters came out of the woods. They had been following the wolf's trail and were preparing to shoot him, but Peter, sitting in the tree, yelled, "Don't shoot! Bertie and I have already caught the wolf. Help us take him to the zoo." A triumphant procession marched across the meadow. Peter was in front with the bird. After him, the hunters led the captured wolf, and following behind was Grandfather and the cat. Grandfather sadly shook his head with worry.
What if Peter hadn't caught the wolf? What then?
But at that moment, Peter was too proud to care, and Bertie was merrily chirping,
"My, what brave fellows we are! Look what we have caught!"
And if one listened carefully, he would hear the penguin squawking from inside the wolf, because in his hurry, the wolf had swallowed her alive. The end.